Hey VC, this is Harvey of Spin the Black Circle. Hope everyone is well, doing good things. This is a VC challenge involving showing 10 albums, and the theme of the challenge surrounds the August 1995 publication of Mojo's 100 Greatest Albums Ever Made, the Critics' Choice. So the only time that this magazine, 31 years later, still hasn't revisited a Critics' Choice of the 100 Greatest Albums Ever Made. And to say that this had a profound impact in the UK on my music taste and many of the people I know is an understatement. So for those who don't know it, I will put a link to the 100 Greatest Albums in the description. But yeah, this completely changed my music, the palette of my music taste. So the challenge is a simple one. Look at the list and choose 5 albums from this list that you would agree altered or validated your musical palette. So the 5 that you truly agree with as landmark titles for you personally, not just for music generally. And the second part of the challenge, the other 5 are what are the 5 albums that are missing from this list. So that could be albums that had already been released and you can't believe they left it off their 100 Greatest Critics' Choice list. Or there could be 5 albums that have been subsequently released that you think would now feature. So I thought that would be quite interesting. So starting with the 5 that really did change my taste. I'm going to start with, prior to this, I was aware of David Bowie. Of course, I'd heard Rebel, I'd heard Starman, I'd heard Space Oddity. But until I actually bought my first Bowie album, this is through the eyes of a 24-year-old, remember, who's listening to Motley Crue and Rat and Metallica. And I bought Ziggy Stardust as a result of reading this publication, and wow, it just blew my mind. Not just the concept, but the musicianship, the absolute quality, world-class quality of his songwriting, and his kind of cultural nous that Bowie had in this period. So it quickly led to me buying all of those 70s albums from Man Who Sold the World, all the way through to early 80s and Scary Monsters, and lapping that up. But yeah, it just blew my mind, Ziggy Stardust, having only heard those big singles and not realising actually the cultural impact that Bowie had then and now. And then similarly, I thought of Joni Mitchell until this publication as kind of this back porch acoustic singer. I'd heard Big Yellow Taxi, of course. Didn't really think there was anything particularly deep about her music. But then I bought The Hissing of Summer Lawns 1975, and wow, again, like Bowie, her chameleon way of switching up every record and doing something entirely different, but still capturing the zeitgeist. I mean, this has got everything from African rhythms to jazz to pop to folk, and but above all, her genius across this and across those other albums like Hejira and like Blue. And Ladies of the Canyon. But this is my first introduction to the realisation that Joni Mitchell was and is a musical genius. And then the third is the album that really did completely change my music taste. I sold all of my metal collection in the 90s because of this publication and this album, and that was Automatic for the People by R.E.M. Because what this introduced to me for the first time is subtlety in music in terms of lyrically, but also the choice of instrument, the choice of instrumentation, their close quarter Beach Boys style harmonies on this, the songwriting, Find the River, Drive, Try Not to Breathe, Everybody Hurts. It just blew me away. I must have listened to this album 200 times, and it did almost literally result in me selling my vinyl collection, my metal vinyl collection, almost all of it, because I realised, I've bought half of it back now for nostalgia, but it did single-handedly, I think, this is the album that from this list really did alter my palette forever, and might sound strange, but led to me having a jazz collection of 400 jazz albums because it opened my mind so much. So that's 3 of the 5 that made a difference to me. And then Bob Dylan too. Again, I didn't think much at all of Dylan. I remember in the 80s watching We Are the World and his vocals being terrible compared to Michael Jackson's and Cyndi Lauper's and Huey Lewis's. Because I just didn't get it. He sounded like a kind of and didn't really get the depth of his lyrics, or oddly enough, how musical Dylan's albums are. It's not just about lyrics, right? You know that if you're a Bob Dylan fan. So from the list, eventually got my hand on Blonde on Blonde. This was on CD at the time. And again, it just blew my mind, not just lyrically because of how, again, like Johnny, how with the zeitgeist he is, but also musically, how astounding this double album is. I remember the moment when I first heard Visions of Johanna from this and just being absolutely blown away. But all of it, you know, obviously Five Believers, fourth time around, obviously that classic last side, full side of Sad-Eyed Lady of the Lowlands, and what an album. And this led to me buying Bringing Them All Back Home. It led to me buying Highway 61, and then probably my favourite LP, which is by Dylan, which is Blood on the Tracks. But yeah, and eye-opening was to hear that Dylan wasn't just some maudlin, grumbling man with not a lot to say, but actually both a lyrical and a musical genius, despite not being the greatest, on paper anyway, the greatest vocalist in the world. But yeah, Blonde on Blonde by Bob Dylan, again I owe it to this Mojo publication. Last but not least, the Rolling Stones are my favourite band, but at the time I just thought they were okay. They're now, though, I have the largest framed poster in my room, and why I'm an absolute Stones obsessive is because of this publication, and particularly Exile on Main Street, which I maintain I'm hard pushed on this because I love a lot of Stones albums, but I would say Exile on Main Street is their shining work of genius for me, and they never surpassed it. You know, in that rundown French chateau in Exile, obviously, and the loose feel of it, largely driven by Keith Richards. But yeah, Exile on Main Street, 5 of 5 of something that really did change my taste and made me the Rolling Stones obsessive that I am to this day, and that is getting worse, turning into a Rolling Stones completist. Okay, so that's the 5 that I'm glad were included. What are the 5 that I think are missing from the list? So actually, there's only one of these that was already available and at large at the time, and that's the first one I'm going to show, which is 5 Years Left by Nick Drake. You know, the canonization and realization that Nick Drake was a genius didn't come until well after this publication, probably late 90s, before people started to unearth those 3 great Nick Drake albums. For me, the best of the 3 is 5 Leaves Left. Well, all 3 are exceptional. These are really good island. Certainly this one is the analog reissue. This is the recent one you can buy now. Obviously, original pressings are off the chart expensive, especially first pressings. But yeah, I mean, outstanding album from an outstanding artist. So I think if this list was republished now, I'd be amazed if Nick Drake's 5 Leaves Left, or Brighter Later, or the last album. The name of which I've forgotten now, with the moon on the cover. If all 3 or at least 1 or 2 of those didn't appear on the list, I would be amazed. So there you go. Nick Drake, 5 Years Left would I think now appear on my list of the top 100. Then a 2002 album by one of my favourite current bands in the world at the minute, Wilco, and that is Yankee Hotel Foxtrot. Is it my personal favourite Wilco album? Possibly not, because I think Being There and Actual Cruel Country are perhaps the greatest too. But in terms of impact and undeniable consistency of a Wilco album, you probably should or possibly should start with Yankee Hotel Foxtrot. You know, they were out of contract with a label, just making an album, hoping they would get a deal, having been dropped by a major label, and came up with this inspired classic in the early 2000s, Yankee Foxtrot Hotel. Probably the most famous track is Jesus, etc. We've got heavy metal drummer on here too. It's just a fantastic album, and there are no weak spots on this LP. It's all about Jeff Tweedy, really. He was and is the key songwriter. For me, they're the best active rock band on the planet at the minute, maybe with the exception of the Rolling Stones, who I suppose are drawing to a close fairly soon. But yeah, Yankee Hotel Foxtrot. I think this would also possibly find its way onto the top 100 list now. It seems to be creeping up there in terms of legacy. The next one may surprise you. The third one I would have on that list, though many wouldn't. Life's So Good by the Sugar Cubes. So obviously Icelandic, Bjork's ex-band. And I think this is the best I've heard Bjork, the freest I've heard, the least arch version of Bjork I'd heard. And it's just a pop classic. Actually, was this out at the time of the Mojo list? Was this pre-August 1995? I can't remember actually. Yeah, of course it was, 1988. So this also could have featured on the list because it was an 88 LP by the Sugar Cubes. But yeah, amazing LP, kind of free sounding, gorgeous pop. The hit from this, the mini hit from this was Birthday, but it's an amazing album. So this could have actually featured in the top 100 list. I doubt that would. This is a bit of a personal thing for me. I doubt this would actually appear on the list. You'd probably get a Bjork album more likely to be on there, perhaps Post. Or Debut might be on the list instead. But Life's Too Good by the Sugar Cubes, recommended. Now the next one I'm pretty certain would feature, and it was also out, it came out a year before the list was published, but clearly too early to be featured. So number 4, Grace by Jeff Buckley. I think this would be up there if it was released now. His only studio album released in his lifetime. Obviously, there's been posthumous releases and lots of live stuff. But yeah, Grace by Jeff Buckley, what a studio album this is. Everything from showing the range of his voice to his guitar work and his songwriting. It has classic written all over it. This is 1994. This is actually a music on vinyl version of this pressing. It's the best I've heard, having owned a few pressings of this, of Grace. I haven't heard an original, but this is an amazing pressing. Probably digital, but it sounds great. But yeah, what a talent, taken far before his time. Was he in his early 30s, I think? He wasn't in the 27 club. But anyway, Grace by Jeff Buckley. I'm pretty confident this would appear in any list published now by Mojo, any magazine, and deservedly so. It's the album that brought to the fore his version of Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah, but there's so much great stuff on this. Lover You Should Have Come Over, the title track. What an LP. So yeah, Grace by Jeff Buckley, pretty sure that would have featured. Last but by no means least, I think probably the best, arguably best soul LP released in the last 30 years since that publication. But again, this one was far too late to be featured, and that is Blonde by Frank Ocean. This is the recent, quite expensive US import reissue, because this was originally just streaming. But yeah, this is, I mean, it's out there in the same way that What's Going On by Marvin Gaye is out there, in the sense that this is so quirky, offbeat. It is so. It's kind of still in that genre, but it's that rarest of things these days too. I think this is a truly original LP, Blonde. The textures, the choices of musical palette on this are something that I haven't heard. So very rare to hear, certainly in the last 20, 30 years, something truly original. But Blonde by Frank Ocean, if you haven't heard it, is that thing. I think this would have a shout at making the top 100 because it is rightly lauded as a really different but exceptional artistic piece of work. He releases an album on this rate once every 10, 15 years if you're lucky. He's still a youngish man, so I look forward to seeing what Frank Ocean does next. But Blonde could be to end this this upload. Would certainly feature in my top 100 now, so that's one of my 5 choices. So there you go then. For those who want to take on the challenge, it's very easy. 5 albums from the 100 list, which I'll publish below, that you agree with, that validate for you should be in the list or changed your music taste, and 5 that should have featured either from the original list that were already available or subsequently released, like the Frank Ocean one. But hope you enjoy watching that, whether you participate in the challenge or not, or whether you just enjoy the video upload. But until the next time, I wish you all the best and peace, VC. Bye.